No one realized the clan slave was the final daughter of the moon, until the alpha caught her scent. Mist coiled around their trunks like restless spirits, and the scent of moss and wet leaves filled the air. Somewhere deep within the forest, the Crimson Fang clan's stronghold rose like a fortress of shadow, its walls blackened by age and smoke. Lyra moved quietly among the servants, her bare feet brushing against the cold stone floors of the clan's hall. Her silver hair fell over her shoulders in soft waves, catching the flicker of torchlight and making her appear almost ethereal. No one paid her much attention. She was the slave girl of the clan, quiet, obedient, and unremarkable. Yet beneath her gentle demeanor, a secret pulsed like a hidden flame. She was the final daughter of the moon, though no one had realized it. Not yet. Her day began as it always did, with the clatter of dishes and the murmured orders of the housekeepers. She moved through the hall with practiced grace, avoiding the eyes of the clan's warriors. She had learned long ago that it was safer to be invisible. Even the alpha, Kalen, rarely noticed her, though the very air seemed to shift when he was near. Kalen was a figure of shadow and strength. His presence filled the hall without effort, and even the bravest warriors bent slightly under his gaze. He carried the forest within him, the silent, untamed power of the wild. There were whispers among the clan that he could smell fear and desire alike, and perhaps, in some way, he could. Lyra paused for a moment to wipe a tray of food, her heart beating faster than usual. There was a sense in the air tonight, a subtle tension that prickled her skin. The moon hung low, silver and full, casting a pale glow over the fortress. She felt it, an invisible thread pulling her, something ancient and urgent. From the corner of the hall, Kalen's eyes caught hers. They were sharp, amber-colored, and unyielding. For a brief moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. Lyra quickly looked away, pretending to polish the tray with careful, deliberate strokes. But she could feel his gaze lingering, like the wind brushing against her skin. The day passed in a blur of chores and whispered conversations. Lyra kept herself busy, though her mind wandered endlessly. She wondered if he had noticed something, a trace of power that no one else could see. She had learned to hide it, to cloak her true self beneath layers of obedience. But sometimes, in the quietest moments, it leaked out, a faint silver shimmer that danced at the edges of her hands. As night fell, the clan gathered for the evening hunt. Torches blazed against the dark, and the scent of pine and smoke mingled with the earthy aroma of the forest. Kalen led the hunt, moving through the trees with the confidence of a predator. Lyra was not supposed to accompany them, yet somehow she found herself following at a distance, drawn by a force she did not fully understand. The forest at night was alive. Shadows shifted like liquid, and the calls of nocturnal creatures echoed in the distance. Lyra felt her senses heighten, her pulse quicken. Something stirred in the air, something old and dangerous, yet strangely familiar. She was not just a servant. She had always known she was more, though the world had not seen it. Kalen's presence was a constant force beside her, though he did not speak. She could feel him noticing her in ways he had never noticed anyone before. His gaze was heavy with curiosity and something deeper, something that made her stomach tighten. She tried to focus on the path ahead, on the sounds of the forest, on keeping herself hidden, but there was no hiding from him. Suddenly, a rustle in the underbrush caught her attention. She froze, her heart leaping. A small stag emerged, its eyes wide and cautious. Kalen stopped, his body tensing like a coiled spring. The animal's scent filled the night, sharp and sweet. Lyra felt a strange warmth in her chest as she watched the stag, its delicate form illuminated by the moonlight. Then Kalen's voice cut through the quiet. "Do you feel it?" he asked, low and rough, almost a growl. Lyra's eyes widened. She did not answer. What could she say? What could she admit? He stepped closer, his presence overwhelming, and she felt the invisible thread tighten around her heart. He knelt slightly, bringing his face closer to her, his amber eyes searching hers. "It's not the stag," he murmured. "It's you." Her breath caught. She wanted to step back to deny the truth, but something in his voice made her falter. He smelled it, her secret, her hidden power, the trace of moonlight that clung to her like a second skin. She had been careful, always careful, yet here it was, exposed in the quiet night. Lyra's hands trembled as she reached for the hem of her cloak, tugging it around her shoulders as if it could hide the glow in her eyes. Kalen did not move away. Instead, he tilted his head, studying her with an intensity that made her feel seen in a way she had never been before. "Who are you?" he asked again, softer this time, as though the question itself was a test, a plea, and a warning all at once. Lyra swallowed, her throat dry. She could not tell him the truth. Not yet. The world was not ready for the Moon Daughter, and she was not ready for what he might do if he knew. But there was a pull she could not resist, a need to meet his gaze and feel the truth between them. "I am just a servant," she whispered, though even she did not fully believe it. Kalen's eyes narrowed, and for a moment the fierce predator in him seemed to flicker. Then he straightened and his voice was low, commanding, and impossible to ignore. "Do not lie to me, Lyra. I can feel it. The air shifts around you. The forest bends. There is a power in you that has been hidden too long." Lyra's heart pounded in her chest. His words were both a warning and an invitation. She wanted to run, to vanish into the shadows where no one could find her. And yet she could not move. The thread between them felt like a chain, binding her to him, binding her to the destiny she had tried so hard to avoid. The night stretched on, and the hunt continued, though Lyra moved with a careful balance of distance and closeness. She could feel Kalen's eyes on her, even when he was focused on the path ahead. Every step they took seemed to pulse with an unspoken rhythm, a silent song that only they could hear. As they reached the edge of a clearing, the moon broke through the clouds in a sudden burst of silver light. It illuminated the forest in stark contrast, making the shadows sharp and the air electric. Lyra felt her power stir in response, a faint glow that traced the edges of her fingers. She tried to hide it, but Kalen noticed immediately. He stopped, pulling her gently behind a tree. His hand was firm, grounding her but not constraining. "Do you feel it?" he whispered. "The moon, it calls to you, always, even when you try to hide." Lyra's breath came in shallow gasps. I try to ignore it," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's too much, too dangerous." Kalen's gaze softened, a flicker of something almost tender passing through the amber of his eyes. "Dangerous?" he asked. "Perhaps, but so are all things worth protecting, and you are worth guarding more than you know." Her heart trembled at his words. She wanted to believe him, wanted to trust him, but the weight of her secret pressed on her like a stone. She was not just a servant. She was the final daughter of the moon, and to reveal that truth could change everything. The forest seemed to hold its breath as they stood there, hidden beneath the shadow of the pines. The moonlight bathed them both in silver, and for the first time, Lyra felt that she was not entirely alone. Kalen's presence was overwhelming, yet somehow comforting. Suddenly, a distant howl echoed through the trees, sharp and urgent. Lyra's pulse quickened. The night was not as still as it seemed, and danger lingered just beyond the edge of the clearing. Kalen's body tensed beside her, and he whispered almost to himself, "You are not safe here. Not yet. But I will find a way to keep you safe, even if the world itself turns against us." Lyra nodded, though she did not fully understand how he could possibly protect her. The thread between them had tightened, pulling her heart toward him, toward something she could not name. The forest held its secrets, the moon held its power, and somewhere deep inside, Lyra knew that her life was about to change forever. As the moon dipped behind a veil of clouds, Lyra felt Kalen's gaze linger on her. It was not just curiosity. It was a recognition, a spark of understanding that left her both terrified and exhilarated. And in that moment she knew, the clan's alpha had caught her scent. The forest seemed to exhale around them, and the shadows whispered of a story just beginning, a story of power, destiny, and a bond that could not be broken. Lyra took a steadying breath, her hands clasped tightly together. She had hidden for so long, but she could not hide from him, and somehow she did not want to. The hunt would end. The night would pass, but the thread between them, silver and unyielding, had been cast. And nothing would ever be the same again. The dawn rose slowly over the Crimson Fang clan's fortress, casting a pale, silver light across the blackened stone walls. Mist clung stubbornly to the corners of the stronghold, curling around the towers like restless spirits. Lyra moved quietly through the halls, carrying trays of food for the warriors, though her thoughts were far from the clatter of dishes. Last night's encounter with Kaelin lingered in her mind like a shadow she could not shake. She had always been careful, invisible, silent. Yet somehow the Alpha had caught her scent. He had seen the faint glow of her hidden power, a trace of moonlight that marked her as the final daughter of the moon. Fear and fascination warred within her. What did he want from her? And could she truly hide any longer? Kaelin moved like a shadow through the halls, and when he passed her, the air seemed to shift. He smelled of pine, smoke, and something untamed, as if the forest itself had chosen him. His amber eyes lingered for a heartbeat longer than necessary, and Lyra's pulse quickened. She kept her head down, but the invisible thread between them tugged, insistent and unrelenting. Breakfast was a quiet affair. The warriors ate quickly, speaking only in clipped sentences. Kaelin sat at the head of the table, a figure of authority and strength. He spoke little, but every word carried weight, and every glance seemed to cut through the shadows. Lyra served the food, careful to keep her hand steady. She felt the pull of his gaze, even when he appeared absorbed in his own thoughts. After the meal, Kaelin summoned her. His voice echoed through the hall, calm yet commanding. "Lyra," he said, "come here." Her stomach tightened. She obeyed immediately, her steps light and careful on the stone floor. When she reached him, he studied her for a long moment, his gaze sharp and searching. "You cannot hide from me," he said softly, almost as if he were speaking to himself. "I can feel it in the air. Your presence, it changes everything." Lyra swallowed, her hands trembling slightly. "I am nothing," she whispered, though even she knew it was not entirely true. She had hidden her power for so long that even she sometimes believed in her own disguise. Kaelin's expression softened, a rare flicker of something almost human in his eyes. "Nothing," he repeated. "Do you understand the danger in those words?" "You are more than anyone could imagine, Lyra, more than even I can comprehend." Her heart thudded painfully. His words were a mixture of warning and admiration, pulling her closer while reminding her of the peril she carried. She wanted to turn away, to retreat into the shadows where she belonged. But the thread between them held fast, tying her to him in a way that both terrified and fascinated her. The morning passed in a haze of duties and stolen glances. Lyra kept herself busy, polishing armor and organizing supplies, though her thoughts never strayed far from Kaelin. Every time she sensed his presence, her chest tightened, and her mind danced with questions she dared not voice. It was during the afternoon that the first sign of danger arrived. A scout returned from the edge of the forest, breathless and anxious. "Alpha," he said, bowing low. "There are movements in the rival clan. They seek something powerful." Kaelin's eyes narrowed. He stood tall and commanding, the weight of his authority settling around him like armor. "The Moon Daughter," he muttered under his breath, though the words were barely audible. They know she exists." Lyra's hands froze, and she felt a cold shiver run down her spine. The rival clans had hunted her lineage for generations, seeking the power that only a Moon Daughter could hold. She had escaped detection for so long, but now the shadow of pursuit crept closer. Kaelin turned to her, his amber eyes intense. "You must stay close to me," he said. "No one can know who you are, Lyra, not yet. If they find you, the forest will not save you, and neither will I unless you let me." She nodded, though fear gripped her heart. She had never trusted anyone completely, and the thought of depending on him felt both foreign and frightening. Yet, deep down, she knew she had no choice. Her secret had been revealed in part, and Kaelin's presence was the only shield she had. The days that followed were a careful dance of tension and observation. Kaelin watched her constantly, though he rarely spoke outright. Every movement she made seemed to draw his attention, every subtle glow of her power setting the forest's shadows to shimmer. Lyra felt exposed in ways she had never imagined, vulnerable yet inexplicably drawn to him. There were quiet moments, too, when the fortress seemed to sleep. In those rare hours, Kaelin would appear beside her in the garden, the silver moonlight washing over them. He would speak softly, asking questions about her past, her fears, and the faint trace of magic that clung to her like a secret fragrance. "I can feel it, Lyra," he said one night, his voice barely more than a whisper. "The moon speaks through you. It calls to me and I cannot ignore it." Her heart raced, a mixture of fear and longing twisting inside her. She wanted to deny it, to pull away, but the pull was too strong. The thread between them was no longer invisible. It was a tangible force, binding them together in ways she could not yet understand. And then, the first test of her power came. One evening, a rival clan attempted to breach the fortress under the cover of darkness. The warriors were caught off guard, and the air was filled with the scent of smoke and the clash of metal. Lyra had been carrying water to the kitchens when a sudden commotion erupted outside the walls. Without thinking, her hands rose instinctively, a faint silver glow emanating from her fingertips. The light spread, pulsing with an energy she had not fully controlled before. The ground beneath her seemed to hum, and the shadows shifted in response. Kaelin appeared beside her in an instant, his presence grounding her. "Control it, Lyra," he said, his voice firm but calm. "Focus. The moon is with you. Let it guide you, not frighten you." She obeyed, centering herself on the rhythm of her breath. Slowly, the glow around her hands steadied, and the energy flowed outward in a protective wave. The rival clan halted, startled by the sudden display, and retreated into the forest. When the last shadow disappeared, Kaelin looked at her with a mixture of awe and something deeper, something she could not name. "You are more than I ever imagined," he said, his voice low, almost reverent. Lyra's heart fluttered, a mixture of pride and fear surging through her. She had revealed a fragment of her power, yet she had no idea how far it truly extended, or what it might cost her to wield it fully. That night, they stood together on the fortress wall, gazing out over the misty forest. The moon hung low and full, casting silver light across the trees. Lyra felt the pull of her heritage, the weight of destiny pressing on her shoulders. Kaelin's presence was beside her, steady and unyielding, yet she sensed the conflict within him as well, the struggle between his desire to protect her and the knowledge of the dangers her power could attract. "You could hide no longer," he said softly. "The world will notice soon enough whether you are ready or not, and when it does, I will not let them take you." Lyra's fingers brushed against his, a fleeting touch that sent a thrill through her chest. She wanted to trust him, to believe in his words, but the fear of what might come made her hesitate. I am not ready," she whispered. "Not for this. Not for any of it." Kaelin's amber eyes softened, the fierce alpha giving way to a man who understood her fear. "None of us are ever truly ready," he said, "but we do what we must, and we protect what is worth saving." The thread between them tightened, pulling them closer in ways that transcended words. Lyra felt the warmth of his presence seep into her bones, anchoring her, even as her power hummed like a pulse beneath her skin. For the first time, she realized that she did not want to run, not from him, not from the destiny that had been thrust upon her. But danger was never far. The rival clan's interest in the Moon Daughter had been awakened, and whispers of her existence would spread faster than the wind. Lyra's secret was no longer hers alone to bear, and Kaelin, he had caught her scent. The forest outside the fortress whispered warnings, and the night seemed alive with eyes watching from the shadows. Lyra knew that her life had changed forever. She was no longer invisible. She was a force to be reckoned with, and the Alpha who had found her was a constant, unyielding presence at her side. She looked up at him, the silver moonlight painting his sharp features in pale light. His gaze met hers, steady and unflinching. "You are not alone, Lyra," he said. "Not now, not ever." Her heart fluttered, caught between fear and a burgeoning trust she had never known. The journey ahead was uncertain, fraught with peril and the weight of destiny. But in that moment, she allowed herself a quiet hope, a hope that perhaps together they could face whatever darkness awaited. The forest murmured around them, the shadows bending to the power of the night and the moon. And Lyra knew, deep in her heart, that nothing would ever be the same again. The thread between them was no longer invisible. It had been cast, silver and unyielding, and it would lead them both into a world of danger, power, and a bond neither could deny. The rival clans were plotting, the forest was restless, and the moon daughter had begun to awaken. The question lingered in the stillness of the night. Would she survive the coming storm, and would the Alpha remain by her side when the world turned against them both? The night was alive with whispers of the old forest. Mist curled between the ancient trees, carrying secrets older than the mountains themselves. Lyra moved cautiously, her silver hair catching the pale moonlight that filtered through the canopy. Kalen walked beside her, his amber eyes sharp and alert. The forest seemed to bend around them, shadows flickering as if curious about the two who dared to walk its hidden paths. They were far from the fortress now. Word had reached them that the rival clan was plotting a direct attack, drawn by rumors of the Moon Daughter's presence. The forest offered temporary refuge, but it was not entirely safe. Lyra could feel the tension in the air, the electric hum of power that had always been part of her heritage. It pulsed faintly beneath her skin, urging her to awaken fully. Kalen glanced at her, his expression unreadable. "You must remain calm," he said softly, though his voice carried a quiet edge of warning. "The forest listens. It can sense fear and hesitation. If you falter, they will find us." Lyra swallowed, nodding. She was terrified, yet oddly comforted by his presence. There was a strange strength in his calm, a certainty she could lean on. And yet, there was also something unspoken between them, a tension that made her heart race and her chest tighten whenever he was near. They walked in silence for a time, the only sound the soft crunch of leaves beneath their feet. Every so often, a distant animal cry echoed through the trees, reminding them that the forest was not empty. Lyra could feel the pull of her own power, a gentle tug toward the moon above. It called to her, insistent, like a distant song she had always known but never fully understood. Kalen finally broke the silence. "I have watched over you since the moment I sensed your presence," he said quietly. "I thought it curiosity at first, but now I realize it is more. You are extraordinary, Lyra, and I will not let anyone take you from me." Her heart fluttered, caught between fear and something warmer, something she could not name. She wanted to deny the attraction, to remind herself that she was merely a servant, invisible and powerless. Yet the thread between them tugged insistently, binding her to him in ways she could not resist. Before she could respond, a sudden rustle in the bushes made them both stop. Kalen moved instinctively, placing himself slightly in front of her. Lyra's pulse raced as she realized the danger was closer than she thought. Yet, when the shadow emerged, it was not an enemy but a familiar figure cloaked in the forest's darkness. "I've been sent to guide you," said a soft voice. A young woman stepped forward, her eyes reflecting the moonlight. "The ruins lie ahead. Only there can you face the trial and awaken your full power, but the path will be perilous and you cannot do it alone." Lyra felt a shiver run through her. She had long suspected that her power could not be fully controlled without confronting the source of her lineage. Yet fear whispered that she was not ready, that she might fail. Kalen's hand brushed hers briefly, grounding her. "You will not face it alone," he said, his voice firm yet gentle. "I will be with you, every step." Together, they followed the guide through winding paths, hidden clearings, and rivers that glowed faintly under the moonlight. The forest seemed to watch them, the shadows bending and twisting in acknowledgement of her presence. Lyra could feel her heartbeat syncing with the rhythm of the woods, the gentle hum of energy rising within her. At last they arrived at the ruins, a circle of stone pillars, weathered and cracked by centuries of wind and rain. The moonlight shone down on them, illuminating the ancient carvings that twisted around the stones like vines. Lyra stepped forward, awe and fear mingling in her chest. This place had called to her for years in dreams she had long tried to forget. "This is it," the guide whispered. "The silver trial. Face your power, Lyra, and claim your destiny. Only then will you be able to protect yourself and those who stand with you." Kalen's gaze never wavered. "We begin when you are ready," he said. "And remember, you are not alone. I will be beside you through it all." Lyra nodded, taking a deep breath. She could feel the pulse of the moon in her veins, a steady rhythm that called to her very soul. She closed her eyes, focusing inward, letting the fear fall away like leaves in the wind. The ruins seemed to breathe with her, ancient magic stirring in anticipation. The trial began with a series of visions. Lyra saw herself as a child, hidden in shadows, running from hunters who sought her power. She saw the forests of her ancestors, silver light flowing from her hands, the weight of destiny pressing on her tiny shoulders. The visions twisted and turned, forcing her to confront every fear she had buried, every secret she had tried to hide. Kalen remained beside her, his presence a steady anchor. "Do not resist," he murmured. "The moon is your guide, not your enemy." Lyra's hands glowed faintly as she allowed the energy to flow through her, guiding her through the visions. She felt her heart tremble with the weight of her heritage, the immense power that had been hidden for so long. And yet with Kalen beside her, she felt strength she had never known. The trial demanded more than courage. It demanded trust, trust in herself and in the one who stood beside her. Kalen's amber eyes met hers, unwavering, silent in their promise. The thread between them pulsed brighter, the bond unspoken yet undeniable. Lyra realized that her power could not be fully awakened without embracing the connection between them, the trust, the protection, and the shared strength. Hours passed like moments. Lyra's power surged and ebbed, a river of silver light that illuminated the ruins. She confronted shadows of her fears, shapes of doubt and isolation that sought to break her spirit. Yet each time, Kalen's presence steadied her. His hand brushed hers when she faltered, his voice whispered encouragement, and his gaze never wavered. At last, the final vision came, a reflection of herself, not as a servant, not as someone hiding, but as the moon daughter in her full glory. Silver light radiated from her, weaving through her hair and pooling in her eyes. She felt the weight of her destiny, heavy yet freeing, and for the first time she did not feel alone. Kalen stepped closer, his hand resting lightly on her shoulder. "You are ready," he said softly. "The world will try to claim you, to fear you, to use you, but you have the power to shape your own path, and I will stand with you." Tears pricked Lyra's eyes, not of fear but of release. She had been hiding for so long, afraid of the power that was always hers. Now she embraced it, not fully yet, but enough to know that she could face the coming storm. The ruins seemed to sigh, the stones humming with energy as if acknowledging her awakening. Lyra felt a connection not only to her own power but to the forest, the moon, and to Kalen beside her. The trial had not been easy, but she had emerged stronger, more certain of herself, and more aware of the bond that had quietly grown between them. They remained in the ruins until dawn, the first light filtering through the trees. Kalen did not speak, and neither did Lyra. Words were unnecessary. The bond between them had been solidified in silence, through shared fear, trust, and the awakening of something greater than either of them could have anticipated. As they prepared to leave, the guide stepped forward once more. "The trial is complete," she said. "But the danger has only begun. The rival clan will not rest, and the world will soon know of your power. You must be ready, Lyra." Lyra nodded, her heart steady despite the fear that lingered. She had faced the trial and she had survived. And Kaelin would stand with her, come what may. The forest seemed alive around them, aware of the awakening moon daughter. Shadows shifted, the wind whispered secrets, and the mist curled protectively around them. Lyra felt a quiet pride, but also a lingering anxiety. The rival clan would come, and the world would soon challenge everything she had just begun to understand. Kaelin placed a hand on her back, guiding her through the forest. "We move carefully," he said, his voice low and steady. "You have awakened your power, but the world does not yet understand it. We must protect it, and you until the time is right." Lyra followed, her silver hair brushing against the undergrowth. She felt the thread between them, silver and unyielding, pulse with each step. She could no longer hide. She could no longer run. The moon daughter had awakened, and with Kaelin beside her, she was ready to face whatever came next. Yet, even in this moment of quiet triumph, she could sense the danger lurking in the distance. The rival clan would not wait, and the shadows of the forest seemed to whisper warnings of battles yet to come. Lyra's heart raced with a mixture of fear and anticipation. The trial had changed her, and she knew that the path ahead would test her in ways she could not yet imagine. But Kaelin's presence, steadfast and unwavering, gave her hope. As the first rays of sunlight touched the treetops, Lyra glanced at him, meeting his amber eyes. "Thank you," she whispered, "for standing with me." He smiled faintly, a rare softness in his usually stern expression. "We face it together," he said. "Always." The forest seemed to hum around them, alive with possibility. The moon daughter had awakened. The Alpha had found her. And together they would face the trials that the world had yet to reveal. And yet, as they moved deeper into the forest, a shadow fell across the path ahead, a reminder that their journey had only begun. The rival clan was watching. The world was changing. And the bond between them would be tested in ways neither of them could yet foresee. The silver trial had ended, but the true test, the trial of survival, trust, and destiny, was only just beginning. The forest was quiet, but the air was thick with tension. Mist curled around the ancient trees, and the scent of pine and earth mingled with the faint trace of something older, something powerful. Lyra and Kaelin moved cautiously, alert to every sound, every shadow. The rival clan had followed their trail, and now the forest seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the storm to arrive. Lyra's heart beat rapidly. Her silver hair shimmered faintly under the pale moonlight, a signal of the power that flowed within her. She had faced the silver trial, awakened her gift, and learned to trust Kaelin. But the weight of her destiny pressed heavily on her shoulders. She was the last moon daughter, and the world would not forgive her weakness. Kaelin's hand brushed hers as they walked, a grounding presence in the midst of the growing tension. "Stay close," he whispered. "They will come, and we must be ready." She nodded, feeling a strange mixture of fear and courage. With him beside her, she felt stronger than she had ever imagined. His amber eyes scanned the shadows, alert to every movement. The Alpha had become more than a protector. He was a partner in the battle that was about to unfold. The first sign of the rival clan came as a rustling in the underbrush, a distant movement that made the forest tense like a held breath. Lyra's pulse quickened, and she felt the familiar pull of her power, the silver light rising beneath her skin. Kaelin tightened his grip on her hand, grounding her, and together they stepped forward. The clearing ahead opened to reveal the battlefield. Mist swirled around the edges, and the faint silver glow of Lyra's power lit the shadows. Figures emerged from the darkness, warriors of the rival clan, their eyes fixed on her as though they could sense the force within. Kaelin stepped in front of her, a living shield of strength and authority. "Stay behind me," he said. His voice was calm, commanding, yet full of unspoken emotion. "We face this together." Lyra nodded, though she did not step back. She had learned too much, grown too much to hide now. The Moon Daughter could not run. She could not hide. And with Kaelin beside her, she would not have to. The rival clan advanced, cautious but confident. Lyra felt her hands glow with a soft silver light, the power of the moon pulsing through her. She raised them instinctively, letting the energy flow outward in a protective wave. The ground beneath her seemed to hum, responding to the strength she had nurtured in the ruins. Kaelin's amber eyes met hers, steady and unwavering. "Focus," he whispered. "Trust yourself and trust the bond between us." She did. She breathed deeply, feeling the pulse of the moon within her, the thread that connected her to Kaelin and the strength of the forest around them. Her power surged, not in a violent burst, but in a controlled, radiant wave that illuminated the clearing. The rival clan faltered, taken aback by the brilliance of the light. Kaelin moved forward, swift and silent, cutting off any who tried to approach. His presence was commanding, precise, and protective. Lyra followed, letting her light guide her movements. Together they moved as one, the Alpha and the Moon Daughter, united by trust, by purpose, and by the bond that had grown in the ruins of the Silver Trial. As the battle continued, Lyra realized something profound. Her power was not just a gift, it was a responsibility. The rival clan sought to claim it, to use it for their own ambition, but she would not allow it. She had trained, she had trusted, and she had learned the rhythm of her own strength. And now she would use it to protect not only herself, but the one who had stood with her through the darkest moments. The clash reached its peak when a group of rival warriors advanced directly toward her. Lyra raised her hands, letting the moonlight radiate outward in a controlled surge. The energy formed a protective barrier, shimmering silver in the darkness. She focused on the rhythm of her breath, the pulse of the moon within, and the bond that tied her to Kaelin. Kaelin moved through the shadows, intercepting anyone who tried to break her defense. His movements were precise, controlled, and fluid, the embodiment of a predator and a protector. Lyra felt a surge of admiration, trust, and something deeper, a warmth in her chest she could not name. The rival clan faltered. Their confidence wavered in the face of the combined power of the Moon Daughter and the Alpha. Lyra could feel their energy retreating, the pressure lifting, but she knew the challenge was not yet over. A hush fell over the clearing as the leader of the rival clan stepped forward. Cloaked in shadows, his presence was commanding and dangerous. "The Moon Daughter belongs to us," he declared, his voice echoing through the trees. "You cannot hide her power forever." Lyra stepped forward, her silver hair glowing in the moonlight. "She belongs to no one but herself," Kaelin said, his voice cutting through the tension. "And anyone who dares to threaten her will face the strength of the forest and the bond we share." The rival leader hesitated, sensing the unbreakable connection between them. Lyra felt her power surge again, a radiant pulse that illuminated the clearing and seemed to bend the shadows around them. The forest itself seemed to respond, the wind whispering through the trees like an ally. Kaelin moved closer to her, his presence a grounding force. "Do not fear," he whispered. "You are stronger than you know, and together we are unstoppable." Lyra's chest swelled with determination. She had faced the Silver Trial and emerged stronger. She had learned to trust herself, to embrace her power, and to rely on the bond that had quietly grown between her and Kaelin. Now she would prove it. The rival leader advanced again, but Lyra raised her hands, letting her silver light radiate outward in a controlled, brilliant wave. The shadows recoiled, the mist swirling in response to her energy. Kaelin moved in perfect sync, intercepting any who tried to approach, and together they formed a force that no one could challenge. The rival clan faltered and then retreated, their confidence shattered by the combined strength of the Moon Daughter and the Alpha. Lyra felt her heart race, relief and exhilaration flooding through her. She had faced the threat and survived, not through violence, but through control, trust, and unity. As the last of the rival clan disappeared into the forest, Lyra and Kaelin stood together in the clearing. The moon hung low, silver and full, casting light across the trees and illuminating the bond that had carried them through the night. Kaelin reached for her hand, holding it gently. "You did it," he said, his voice soft, filled with awe and admiration. "You faced the trial and you have emerged stronger than anyone could have imagined." Lyra smiled faintly, a mixture of pride and relief in her expression. "I could not have done it without you," she whispered. "You were there, every step of the way." His amber eyes softened and he stepped closer. "We face everything together, Lyra," he said. "You are not alone. Not now, not ever." The forest seemed to exhale around them, the shadows receding and the mist curling protectively around the clearing. Lyra felt a warmth in her chest, a quiet joy that had nothing to do with power and everything to do with the bond she shared with Kaelin. For the first time in her life, she felt truly seen, truly understood, and truly safe. The Moon Daughter had awakened, but she was no longer alone in her journey. They stood in silence for a long moment, the quiet only broken by the whisper of the wind through the trees. Lyra felt her silver light fade to a gentle glow, her energy settling into a steady rhythm. Kaelin's presence remained a grounding force, steady and unwavering. Finally, Lyra spoke, her voice soft but determined. "The journey is not over," she said. "The world will know of my power soon and there will be more challenges, but I am ready." Kaelin smiled, a rare softness in his usually stern expression. "Then we face them together," he said. "No matter what comes, we stand as one." The forest around them seemed to hum with approval, the shadows bending, and the moonlight shining brighter as if acknowledging the union of power and trust. Lyra felt a sense of peace she had never known, a quiet certainty that they could face whatever lay ahead. As dawn approached, the clearing was bathed in silver light, the forest alive with possibility. The rival clan had been repelled, but Lyra knew this was only the beginning. The Moon Daughter had awakened fully, and with Kaelin at her side she was prepared for the trials that would inevitably come. She looked up at him, meeting his amber eyes. "Thank you," she whispered, "for believing in me." He took her hand, holding it gently. "Always," he replied. "I will never stop believing in you, Lyra. You are not just the Moon Daughter. You are my equal, my partner, and my strength." Lyra felt a warmth spread through her chest, a mixture of joy, trust, and something deeper she could not yet name. The bond between them had been tested, strengthened, and proven unbreakable. The trials were not over, but together they were unstoppable. The forest whispered around them, shadows retreating, mist curling in quiet acknowledgement, and the moon shining brightly above. The Moon Daughter had awakened. The Alpha had found her. And together they would face whatever challenges awaited, their bond unyielding, their hearts intertwined, and their destiny illuminated by the silver light of the moon. As they turned to leave the clearing, the distant sound of the forest's creatures heralded a new day. Lyra took a deep breath, feeling the rhythm of her power, the presence of Kaelin beside her, and the weight of destiny settling comfortably into place. The silver trial had ended. The battle had been won. But the story, the true journey of trust, power, and heart, was only just beginning, and together they would face it all.